Well, hello, everybody. So we have a really good conversation to have today with our Kenton County Clerk, Gabe Summe, about the upcoming election here in a few weeks. So, Gabe, good to be with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I think these are excellent, and it's such a great way to get information out to everybody in Kenton County.
You bet. So you're doing a great job as county clerk, and one of the key functions is managing elections and both state laws that come about and managing the budget, et cetera, for all these things. So let's talk about the 4 ways that someone can vote to this coming May 17th. Let's get right down to brass tacks. So what are the 4 ways?
The key is so everybody knows their options. There was a recent law passed, which now has added another layer to voting. We, of course, have mail-in absentees. That portal for anybody who would require a mail-in ballot closes tomorrow. So I just want people to be very clear that they need to go on to govoteky.com, pick the reason that's good for them, and they will be able to get a ballot in the mail. Again, that ballot closes, or I should say the portal closes May 3rd at midnight. Okay. Then starting on May 4th, which is Wednesday, there is what they call walk-in excuse absentee voting. That is your traditional thing we've seen in the past. I'm going to be gone all day on election day, or due to employment, or things of that nature, where people will not literally be here during the 3 days of early voting, which don't require an excuse, or on election day. They can start, and that's only going to be at 1840 Simon Kenton Way in the voter registration office. They'll come in, show their ID, they'll sign an affidavit as to why they will not be present on election day, and they'll be able to vote right then and there. Those 6 days are only on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. There's no voting on Saturday or Sunday, and then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Starting on Thursday, May the 12th, I apologize. That's when we have our true 3 days of early no excuse voting. So 7:30 to 4 for excuse voting for the 6 days, 3 days of early voting, May 12th, May 13th, May 14th, which is a Saturday, which should be very helpful for people. Again, 7:30 to 4. There are 5 physical locations, actually 6 physical locations, because the voter registration office will also be open here in this building, which is 1840 Simon Kenton Way. And the other locations, I'm just going to direct everybody to go to the website because there's so many, and I want people to be able to see addresses and what precincts are there. My key at this point is everybody check their registration. We had redistricting, so people's names have changed for their precincts and those locations. So govoteky.com lets you not only check your registration, but also know what you're going to be voting on and things like that. And then we get into just election day, which is still May 17th.
Well, let's go back over the main 4 that are prior to election day.
Great.
So absentee, which is kind of ending here on May the 3rd.
Correct.
In terms of getting your affidavit signed off on why that excuse is there. Then number 2 is that I just can walk into 1840. That's as of May the 4th. That is a date that I can then come in, sign the affidavit, and actually go ahead and get a ballot then at that time. Is that correct?
Correct. And you're basically in person, bring your ID with you. They're able to vote right then and there, but they will be having an excuse to be able to vote in advance of election day.
Great. And then we've got the other option, which is the 3 days prior to election day itself. And that is actually going to be a case where you can either do it, in fact, even up until the Saturday prior to normal election day at different locations, but also in no mandatory spot, one of all those locations, or come down to 1840 Simon Kenton Way.
Yes, there's the 6 locations, and we have tried to designate people to go to ones that are near them. We did this more regionally. We wanted to make sure we had enough in the south of the county and also in your larger neighborhoods, as well as in Covington. So even though we want people to go to what's close to them, if they did go to one that wasn't close to them, they still would be able to vote because we have print on demand. That means the ballot is produced when that person is there signing to be able to vote at that moment.
Okay. And I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I like to just keep things really clear for individuals. Early absentee, walk-in absentee, and then 3-day early voting, including on Saturday.
Right.
And I do have a spot. So if I don't pick one of those correct spots to find that location of one of the 6, will I be able to do that? Or is it just to make it more convenient for me if I'm in a different part of the county?
Well, everything that the legislators changed, it allowed for voting centers. And people like the concept, but it's very different for anybody to vote in a voting center. Usually you have very specific place to go. Well, that is a little different in that we are designating people to go to specific ones if it's close to them. But if they chose, say, for instance, I live in Covington and vote, or I've been working Independence, and I took my lunch hour, I could technically go to the Independent Senior Center, get my correct ballot for my specific precinct and vote.
Very good. So now let's talk about election day itself, May 17th. We've got difference in locations this year as well.
Yes, so so again, though, election day is much more traditional. We have our 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. that the polls are open. And the locations are pretty much how they were in the general in 2020. There is 24 locations. Again, we have the location here in this building, but for the most part, people are going to be voting where they have traditionally voted. If you were in Villa Hills, you'd be voting at the River Ridge Elementary School. So we kind of did more city centers than voting centers, okay? But some of my bigger cities, like Erlanger and Independence and Covington, they have multiple locations and the voter can choose which one to go to. They're not having to go to a specific one. So if they're not sure where someplace is and they know where another location is, they could choose where they want to vote that day and properly get their precinct ballot and vote.
So, and we got this in the mail the other day. In fact, I got mine in the mail.
Yep.
That lists very nicely all the spots that someone would normally go to and then says, go to this location. This is on those days. And if I'm in a precinct, to your point, I'm repeating, if I'm in a city that has a higher population, I may have different locations, but I actually can go to any of those spots. I'm not only to go to my one precinct.
Yeah, well, so the guide, which I think is fabulous, and I have to thank the graphic designer for putting it together to make it so nice and easy to read. Everybody got a postcard on how to vote. And then that other layer was added. This is where to vote. And so that first line in there is a code. That's the state code. And that's important. That's why it's good to check your registration. The next is your actual precinct name. And then there's a list of where people used to vote. So if they used to, or they remember where they voted, now they know that last column is going to tell them where they can go. All right. So basically, if I'm in Villa Hills, I'm going to go to River Ridge. Crescent Springs is going to Crescent Springs City Building. But in Covington, they can come to the Government Center. They can go to Calvary Baptist. They can go to the Life Learning Center. They can go to, there's at least 4 options for those voters. And the same with Independence. They have 2 major options. And Erlanger also has, because Erlanger is spread out across the county. So trying to give people that opportunity to go to where it's most convenient for them.
Gabe, so one of the questions I'm sure you get often is, hey, I've been voting at pretty much the similar places, go back a couple of elections that were always the same precinct, may have been at a school, may have been somewhere. Why change it?
Well, we did have redistricting this year. And when we did redistricting, precincts change because the makeup of those precincts change. We might have different House districts and different Senate districts. And when we did that, we also kind of looked at how do you get from point A to point B? So we looked at populations, and we also looked at some of our precincts that have shrunk so much, mainly along the Boone border where you have a lot of industrial parks now and a lot of the neighborhoods are no longer there. So we've kind of merged those. We went from having about 105 precincts to 70. The less locations, the one thing is it's actually easier to vote. The less locations was never intended to make it harder to vote. It's just that you now have the options to choose where you would like to go to vote. And the city centers, most people are pretty comfortable with going to what's somewhere within their neighborhood or within their city borders. The key is that most of those have not changed for people.
That's the key.
And so for them, they're still going to the same location they always did. And early voting, no excuse early voting, which has 6 options, really, that's kind of an option for people. They may not choose to do that. So there in that, there's more precincts, or I should say more precincts are in the early voting than are on election day. And they're
Right.
pre-printed ballots still. That has not changed.
Great. And I want to, jump also quickly to the fact that we are going to be seeing new machines.
Yes.
And there's, I know there's some videos, which we want to talk about in a second, but why new machines? And then, what is that going to look like?
Well, the new machines, Kentucky federal law tried to change to say we wanted a paper backup for every vote. Every person, there was a paper trail of how that person voted. And it never passed federal law, but Kentucky adopted that quite a while ago. But in the process, counties are the ones who pay the cost of all elections in Kentucky. And some people had the money. So they said, when you are eventually going to get new equipment, it must be a paper-based system. So about my last term, I came to the fiscal court. And again, thank you very much. And I said, I've got a certain excess I'm going to turn over. Please reserve a certain amount of it so that we can purchase new equipment. That way we were able to comply with the new law, which is a completely paper-based system. We still have our handicap machines. We still have the scanners, but we have a ballot for every person. And I do have those videos out there for people to check it out, but it's time to have new equipment. It's all the new security protocols that are required by not only the federal, but also the state certification processes. This makes it, I think, poll worker more friendly as far as production and setup, and also easier for my voters to use.
It's great. Well, that's a good recap. And obviously the old systems were functioning well, very safe and secure. Now this even takes it to the next level. And so we would go to which website to see videos that would show us how to use those.
So if somebody does go on the Facebook, there's a Kenton County Clerk Facebook. The 3 videos are there. One is just how to review your registration and use the portal if somebody needed an absentee. The other video is how to actually fill out your absentee to make sure that it meets all the criteria for acceptance. And the final one is showing how what the new equipment looks like and how to use it. It's very simple. And of course, there will always be somebody, a poll worker, to help you use that. Great. It's also on my website, which is www.kentoncountykclerk.com, which is a mouthful, I know, but you could go out there and under the election tab, it's very nice and very simple. It takes you down how to vote. There's where to vote, and in there are the videos that correlate with what people are looking to do.
Well stated. So just to recap, if I'm absentee, that's actually May 3rd. If it's a walk-in excuse, but just to walk in and verify, that's May 4th. Then I've got 3 days prior, for the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday prior to the election, and we can do that at those really here at the 1840 Simon Kenton Way. And then we also have the 5 other locations, correct?
Yes.
And then obviously the traditional May 17th. So lots and lots of opportunities. Just have to ask a question. You've been handling all this very well with a lot of changes, redistricting and things. The staffing that you've had to do, we say thanks to them and you for doing this, by the way, but also you got the poll workers. Poll workers is always a challenge, but do you have anyone, the training you've been doing there, any acknowledgement you want to make a message to them as well?
I do. And here's why. An election is not done by one person. It is an incredible team effort from my bipartisan board of elections to the bipartisan group of poll workers, whether it's 20 that kind of happened during the pandemic because it was a very limited, to the 600 that I've either trained and have worked out on elections. They are the ones who are the best ambassadors for how Kenton County functions. And they're the ones who are the boots on the ground who make sure elections are safe. Now, the integrity, I get that people are concerned, but I have to say with new equipment, we have, even before the law has allowed it, everything, including all the voting equipment, is now under video surveillance. We still have drop boxes. They're under video surveillance. We have a lot of other protocols. We are a pilot for risk limiting audits that are going to be put in place by the state and recently have been made into law. So Kenton County has been on the forefront of everything to do to make sure that we have secure elections. And without the support of not only of my poll workers and my staff, fiscal court has been phenomenal because you understand how important this is. And I can never thank you guys enough for that.
You bet. Well, it's good government through and through there, Gabe. So thanks for the work. And we hope everyone does their homework and and shows up to the polls.
And one last thing, if anyone's looking for sample ballots, they're on the website too, so they can see what they're going to vote on election day.
And those are on your website. And are they also on the Facebook page, or is that just on the website?
Yes, they're on the Facebook page as well, but they're a little easier to see on the web. I mean, on the website, just because of the way that they're displayed.
Great. Gabe, as always, thanks so much. And thanks for the hard work. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you and have a lovely day.